certainly interested in your ideas and your preferences about that. So I think that there is at least one council here that has a vacation planned within the next week or two. But if my assistant could email you, would you be interested in getting together and talking? This is a novel thing. This doesn't happen every week, year, or decade in this county. So I think that our court administrator has reached out to other counties on other cases. So I'd be interested in sharing with you what they discovered, as well as asking you how you would like to proceed.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir, we're available.
Okay.
we are too. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. We will do that. Probably within the next 3 days. I'm very interested in moving things along. Okay. The next motion is the defendant's motion to restrict publicity. The court has thoroughly reviewed both the defendant's motion and subsequent emergency motion and the prosecutor's response to both. Pursuant to MCO 2.119E3, the court dispenses with oral argument. Defendant's motion includes complaints about statements and alleged misstatements by the prosecution in press conferences and releases. Similarly, the prosecution alleges that defense counsel themselves have circulated information about this case. Many of the alleged defending statements and evidence were made in conjunction with and at a court proceeding and are therefore permissible. Any alleged violations of the Michigan Rules of Professional Conduct are not within the jurisdiction of this court. Going forward, this court has an affirmative constitutional duty to protect the rights of the accused as well as the people. The prosecutor's brief cites Supreme Court authority for the proposition that trial publicity, even pervasive, adverse publicity, does not inevitably lead to an unfair trial, and that there is a range of curative devices available to this court to prevent publicity from infecting a jury. This matter and its various derivations have been kept in the press on a regular basis. Press conferences and internet posts by the prosecution have contributed to the attention given to this matter. However, post-charge, pre-arrest conduct by the defendants and statements by the defense attorneys have also contributed to the intense interest by the press. The prosecution points out the staggering volume of social media related to this case, both accurate and fabricated. The prosecutor's pleadings express a duty to monitor the internet so as to correct perceived inaccuracies about this case. The prosecution also expresses a duty to prevent future gun violence in what they describe as an epidemic. Although admirable goals, prevention of gun violence and correcting untruths is a desire of the prosecution, not a duty. It is not a duty of the prosecution to police the internet. An overriding duty of the prosecution, the defense, and the court is to maintain the integrity of these proceedings. Considering that a fair and impartial jury is the goal, why is it necessary for either the plaintiff or the defendant to make public statements about the case, other than in open court or in court filings? The court has no intention of censuring the media. The prosecution has agreed with defendants that all parties end contact with the media and focus on resolving this case. To that end, the court grants defendants' motion to restrict pretrial publicity. Going forward, the defense is obviously able to confer with their clients, and the prosecution is permitted to confer with potential witnesses, the victim, and notify them about the progression of the case. However, any and all statements made about this case by the prosecution and its agents and the defendants and their agents will be made solely to the court, either on the record or in the chambers, with all parties present, or in the form of properly filed pleadings with service on all parties. Otherwise, no statements will be made by the parties or their agents. This includes all forms of media and public domains, which includes the internet. All right.
Judge, may I briefly address the court on that matter?
Okay, briefly.
Judge, there's a reason why I think that order doesn't serve the public interest. And I want to give the court one example, just one concrete example. Judge, in December, I was on vacation with my family, and someone posted on Facebook postings that, quote, exclusive, Ethan Crumbley has been deemed incompetent to stand trial for the murder of 4 students.
That was in the prosecutor's brief. I've considered that.
And Judge, that posting would have gone unresponded to for who knows how long, and victims' families saw that, and they believed that their case had been changed or compromised. In an ordinary case, the prosecutor could call their victim and say, ignore it, it's not true. We don't have that ability without the media.
You have a victims unit, right, who's in
We do.
direct contact, right?
Yes,
And that is the purpose of the victims crime unit in the prosecutor's office, right? There are so many things on the internet, right? So many things. I can't allow that. I can't allow that because then what's going to happen is then I am going to change venue. If there's internet posts and things in the media, then the prosecutor is going to be with me driving to Lord knows where, Bell Creek,
Judge.
Vegas, you name it.
Judge, I do understand that, but who other than the prosecution could have corrected that statement?
It's not your job to correct the statement. It's your job to give the defense a fair trial, and that's my job too, and that's what we're going to do.
I understand, but the
Yeah.
public is misled, and we can't do a phone tree with 1,000 victims, and so we're having people who are now experiencing. So what we did in that case, I called one media outlet and said that's 100% false. They published it and it ended the rumor. It actually got it taken down. And what I want to make sure is the clear is telling me I can't. The court's telling me I
What's
can't do
up?
that.
What's up? What's up? What's
If I see
up?
it,
What's
it's not
up? What's going on from Germany? Germany in the motherfucking house.
And either side can go to the.
How's your morning going?
I'm not all-knowing. I'm
How's your day going, Big Mac?
the court judge trying to do her best, read the rules of evidence. If anyone doesn't agree with me, I'm sure you can go to the court.
How's your day going, bro?
I'm trying to do my best.
What you up to?
The overriding need here
How is it in Germany? Is abortion still legal in Germany?
and the suffering.
Because it's not legal over here.
And some of the suffering. And the way to end some of the suffering on both sides is to try this case in the most expeditious.
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm feeling pretty
That's what I
good.
wanna do.
I understand, Your Honor. Thank
I
you.
understand why you feel.
Hopefully today is a productive day,
I understand.
you know?
Thank you.
All right.
But I definitely appreciate it.
Next is defendant's motion.
Appreciate you for stopping by, Big Mac.
The court has thoroughly reviewed the.
If you
defendant's
could, please hit that
response.
please hit that
Court
follow.
dispenses with oral argument pursuant to
I was about to say subscribe. If you could, please hit that follow, Big Mac. I would
To ask appropriate
greatly
questions.
appreciate it.
Cite Michigan Rule of Evidence 602. Michigan Rule of Evidence 602 states that a witness
And also,
matter unless
if you like political, you know, like political topics and whatnot,
evidence
on Fridays and Saturdays,
need not consist of the
every Friday and Saturday night, I do host political panels.
heard, felt,
So if you ever feel like you want to come by and express your thoughts or your minds or any of your feelings on certain topics that are going on, even if it's not about, like, I guess, American politics, you know, stop by and let us know, because we're always trying to grow the community
about what they know for
and have new people stop by.
were permissible under the rules.
Are you into politics or?
Response that it's impossible to
I did it last time. Okay, for sure, Big Mac. Appreciate you, Big Mac.
It's the obligation
I was in multi-stream, so I couldn't. I didn't notice if you were a new streamer or not.
as the question is asked. The next motion is defendant's motion to eliminate to exclude evidence that would violate hearsay and confrontation rules.
Love you too, Big Mac.
The court has again thoroughly reviewed the defendant's motion and the prosecutor's response. The court waives oral argument.
How do you feel about that whole situation that's been going on over here in America about them
Evidence at trial.
leaving abortion up to the states,
Journal ceased
to the individual states for the people to vote on?
Second, text messages from the
Or do you,
shooter's
or have you even heard about it?
shooter's internet searches. In response, the prosecution seeks to admit specific statements from the shooter's journal, including the following, quote,
God damn it.
I have access to the gun and the ammo. I want to help, but my parents don't listen.
Have you heard about this mass shooter right here, though?
I have zero help.
Okay,
with
okay.
violence, and it's causing me.
You haven't? Yeah, this mass shooter, his parents actually got arrested because they say that the parents were negligent and that, like, the parents should have been looking out for what he was doing or whatnot.
Shooting, such as, quote,
This is the first case that I ever heard like this.
I'm about to shoot up the school and spend the rest of my life in prison, unquote. With regard to text messages,
You hear this little badass nigga?
seeks to admit the following from the shooter to his friend and April 5th, 2021 at 12:30
This nigga was
a.m.
bad.
Quote, I'm going to ask my parents to go to the doctors tomorrow or Tuesday again, but this time I'm going to tell them about the voices, unquote. And these messages authored by this shooter between 11
What is that woman?
and 12:39
What
p.m.
is this
on
woman
April 4th
taking?
and April 5th, 2021, quote.
She's
Like, I
talking-
hear people talking to me and see someone in the
She's
distance.
quoting, I guess, the messages that was on his Facebook or like between his
He just gave me
messages.
some pills and told me to suck
The
it up.
kid that did the mass
And it's
shooting.
at the point that I'm asking to go to the doctor. My mom laughed when I told her, but I'm having bad insomnia right now and paranoia.
Oh wow, he told his mom that he was having troubles.
I was thinking I calling 911 to
And she laughed at him.
I could get the hospital. But then my parents would be really pissed. Like I'm mentally and physically dying, unquote. And finally, the prosecution seeks to admit cell phone data showing internet searches and browsing history from the shooter.
Damn, they got these parents, bro. I don't think. Damn, bro. I'm sorry, my English is not so good. Okay, it's okay. It's okay, Big Mac.
Falls into a recognized exception under the Michigan Rules of Evidence. In addition, Michigan Rule of Evidence 402 indicates that relevant evidence, except what is excluded by the United States and Michigan constitutions, is admissible, and irrelevant evidence is inadmissible. Evidence is relevant if it's material that is related to any fact that is of consequence to an
This is
action,
fucking crazy, bro.
meaning has any
They
tendency
really got a lot of
to
evidence on the parents for not doing shit because they knew what was going
more
on.
probable than it would be without the evidence. Relevant evidence may be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. The court is not currently aware of any evidence that the defendants in this matter were made aware of the content of the shooter's journal, his text messages, or his internet searches. The defense argues that if the shooter does not testify in this matter, and this evidence is admitted, the defense will be unable to conduct cross-examination pursuant to the Confrontation Clause and holding in Crawford v. Washington. That's 541 U.S. 36, a 2004 matter. Crawford notes that the goal of the Confrontation Clause is to ensure the reliability of evidence. To this end, Crawford prohibits testimonial evidence. The prosecution argues that the evidence they seek to admit does not violate the Confrontation Clause because it falls within several exceptions to the hearsay rule contained within the Michigan Rules of Evidence. Michigan Rule of Evidence 803 indicates that the following are not excluded by the hearsay rule, even though the declarant, in this case the shooter, is available as a witness. 803.1, present sense impression. 803.3, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition. 803.24, other exceptions. With regard to statements in the journal, the defense argues that they are testimonial in nature because many of the passages express a desire to have the shooter's action cause a huge investigation, to become famous, to leave a legacy, and
Oh,
to
wow.
cause President Biden to be impeached. The Michigan Evidence 803.1 exception allows statements describing.
He was trying to get
explaining an
President
event.
Biden
The
impeached.
statement is made at or near the time or of perception of the event.
How
Hallmarks
do
of this
you?
exception, as noted by
How
Justice
do
Hendrickson,
the
459
American potato
Michigan
chips actually
229,
taste? Good.
are
They're fucking
reliable,
amazing. I love potato chips.
substantially contemporaneous,
I
and
just had me some
by
potato
correlation
chips
by independent
and some
evidence.
cheese, like some cheese to dip it in. I was eating that yesterday. It's so good. It's so good. Matter of fact, bro, I have a YouTube channel. Go check out the two chips that I tasted. I think you'll be shocked. Matter of fact, let me post the videos in chat right now.
According to preliminary examination testimony, was discovered in the shooter's backpack on November 30th, 2021. The preliminary examination transcript indicates the firearm was only purchased on November 26, 2021. The horrific events of November 30th, 2021 certainly corroborate this statement. The prosecution seeks to admit several statements in the journal that relate to the shooter needing.
That's funny that you asked that.
Pursuant to MRE 803.1, and 8033. These statements are also non-testimonial, substantially contemporaneous, and corroborated by the requests of the Oxford School District of the parents to
I
seek
got you,
mental health
bro.
for their
Give me
son,
1 second.
and they're therefore admissible under 8031. These journal statements are also admissible.
Do you know some German things?
No.
No. It's like, I think the German pretzel, I think that's a thing. Like the German hot dog. Like the Bratwurst hot dog. That's about it. Yeah, I don't really know too much about the German culture at all, to be honest with you.
About help for a therapist.
And I know about German Shepherds.
These are all relevant to the shooter's state of mind and thus admissible.
Yeah, Schnitzel's. That's like it's like pork. It's like a pounded pork.
1995 case.
Schnitzel's.
Schnitzel's. That quote, the shooting is tomorrow, and I'm about to shoot up the school and spend the rest of my life in prison, are again non-testimonial.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. But I actually don't eat meat anymore though. Besides pussy, that's the only meat I do consume.
As previously delineated, the prosecution seeks admission of a series of text messages made by the shooter during April 4th through 5th, 2021. Quote, like I hear people talking to me and see someone in the distance. Like it's at the point that I'm asking to go to the doctor. But I'm having bad insomnia right now.
This is crazy. This kid was really having problems.
I need help.
Do you know the name Marcus? Nah. Who is that?
So I could get the hospital.
I'm gonna look him up right now.
But then my parents
Who
were
is that?
really pissed. Like I'm mentally and physically dying. Similarly,
This kid really had a lot of problems, and he was really trying to let people know what he was going through. Nobody wanted to listen to him.
And are admissible pursuant to MRE 8033 and Fisher case. Text message stating, I actually asked my dad to take me to the doctor yesterday.
Oh wow.
Just gave me some pills and told me to
This
suck
dude
it
is
up.
strong.
And, quote, my mom laughed when I told her, unquote, are also admissible. Although these texts are not specifically covered by any of the other exceptions to the hearsay rule, they are permissive under 803.24. The texts are offered as evidence that the
I've never heard of him before.
with his parents about his mental
Never
health
heard of
issues.
Marcus.
They are more probative on the issue of whether the apparent shooter made the defendants aware of his mental health challenges than any other evidence that the prosecutor may procure. And the rule and interest
You look strong.
of justice will best be served by their admission. The texts are sufficiently reliable to be admitted. Specific excerpts from the shooter's journal and text messages requested for admission by the prosecution are clearly relevant, as they tend to make the existence of facts at issue in this case more probable. The evidence is not unfairly prejudicial and is highly probative. The shooter's non-testimonial statements about his intent, his emotional status, and describing a current event are at issue in this matter and are highly probative with regard to the defendant's alleged gross negligence. Even though texts in April of 2021 are 7 months before the shooting in November, they are highly probative of the people's allegations that the defendants continually ignored.
You said, tell me something about America. Maybe
The prosecution also seeks to introduce highly disturbing searches by the shooter. The court agrees with the prosecution that the cell phone.
What can I tell you about America? There's a lot of different cultures here.
MRE 801C defines hearsay as a statement.
There's some beautiful lakes.
One made by the parent while testifying at the trial or hearing, offered in evidence to prove the truth.
There's some good weed.
Internet searches and browsing history are simply data recorded by a cell. They are not statements.
I don't know. America's pretty chill.
They are therefore not hearsay. The court is aware that
America's
it is
pretty
clear
chill, bro. I love it.
Prosecution that the defendant should be aware of everything contained on the shooter's phone. However, the prosecution does not allege that either parent was aware of searches on the shooter's phone. Without some evidence that the defendants had knowledge of what was contained on the shooter's
And the
phone.
worm.
The cell
Oh,
phone
and the
records
women's.
are irrelevant
Ooh, the
and
women.
enforceable,
Oh, shit.
pursuant to MRE 401.
I love them. I love my American women now. Shoot. For real,
Last
for
is
real.
defendant's motion to exclude irrelevant evidence.
But like I said, we have a lot of different cultures here, you know. So I see German women sometime also. No, because I say, like, I actually stay in Houston, Texas. So Houston, Texas is actually like, you know, there's a whole bunch of different cultures here because it's a big city, you know. So yeah, I see all type of different women. A lot of beautiful women here. But now, since these women can't have abortions, you know, we can't just be fucking these girls like that anymore. We gotta watch what we doing, which is sad now. Because before we could just go tell these women to go have an abortion, you know, but now we can't go tell them to have an abortion. We can't be fucking these girls like that no more, bro. It sucks.
A Nazi Germany coin. 4, the defendant's house being messy in the presence of alcohol and marijuana. 5, the shooter's video games. 6, evidence about a bird head in a jar. 7, Instagram photos or posts by the shooter. 8, internet searches by the shooter. The prosecutor cites People v. Towns, 391 Michigan 578, a 1974 case with
Hell yeah, I'm
that
saying GT, yeah.
manslaughter is the killing
It's
of another
nice.
without malice and unintentionally, but in doing some unlawful act not amounting to a felony, nor naturally tending to cause death or great bodily harm, or negligently causing some act lawful in and of itself, or by the negligent omission to perform a legal duty. The prosecution must show gross negligence. That's People v. Head, 323, Mishap, 526, a 2018 matter. Gross negligence means wantonness and disregard of the consequences that may ensue, despite being aware of the risks. However, involuntary manslaughter can be based not just on the actions of a defendant, but on a defendant's failure to perform a legal duty. That's People v. Holtschlag, 471 Mish 1, the 2004 case, and People v. Zapp, 184 Mishap 1, a 1990 matter. And the people's stated theory is that both of the defendants failed to exercise ordinary care to protect the community from their disturbed son by giving him access to a firearm and willfully ignoring their son's signs that he might be dangerous. Defendants argue that the defendant's time and money spent horseback riding is irrelevant and should be excluded. They argue that there is no relevance between the charges of involuntary manslaughter and how much time and money it costs defendants to board, ride or hire a farrier for the horses. In other words, the defendants argue that caring for and riding horses does not imply that the defendants did not care for their son and therefore breached a duty or act grossly negligent, and that the evidence is more unfairly prejudicial than probative. Evidence produced at the preliminary examination has demonstrated that the defendants spent a significant amount of time and money caring for and riding their horses. The evidence
Well, this is about horses.
However,
This is about some goddamn horses.
presented evidence that could allow a reasonable jury to determine that the defendants were out horseback riding or continued to remain at the stables where their horses were kept during time periods when their son was displaying disturbing behavior, and those behaviors were known to the defendants. Therefore, the evidence is relevant to demonstrate potential lack of concern for their son's mental health needs and will be admitted. Defendants next argue that the defendant's alleged marital infidelity is irrelevant to whether the defendants were grossly negligent. Defendants cite the Crawford case as well as People v. McKinney, 410 Mish 413, a 1981 matter, for the proposition that the evidence proffered at trial must bear a particularly sufficient correspondence or connection to a case before it can be properly admitted. A co-worker testified at preliminary examination that defendant Jennifer Crumley confided that she was having marital problems, and the co-worker believed Jennifer Crumley was seeing this man during work hours. The court is unaware of any additional evidence with regard to potential infidelity by either parent. The evidence that defendant Jennifer Crumley was seeing someone outside of her marriage during work hours, standing alone, is unfairly prejudicial character evidence and not probative of an alleged dereliction of parental duty and will not be admitted. Defendants next argue that a Nazi coin found in the shooter's bedroom should be excluded. The coin undoubtedly elicits negative feelings from anyone who sees it. However, it's unclear whether the defendants knew or should have known that the shooter possessed the coin, and the coin does not make a fact of consequence to this action more or less probable, so it's irrelevant and not admissible. Defendants next asked for the exclusion of evidence that marijuana and alcohol were inside of the home and that it was messy. If the home was in a condition that could possibly threaten health, safety, or general welfare, then it would certainly be relevant evidence of a dereliction of a parental duty. But the evidence of a house in disarray does not appear to have any tendency to make the existence of any fact at issue more or less probable, and is therefore not admissible. Defendants note that marijuana and alcohol are not illegal substances. Intoxication or drug use by the parents at the time of the shooting or when the shooter accessed the gun would be very material and have great probative force. And that's People versus Fiesel, 486, Michigan, 184, a 2010 case. However, the existence of these substances in the home is not relevant, absent some evidence that the use of the substances was tied to one or both of the defendants' dereliction of parental duty. Defendants next seek to exclude evidence that the shooter played graphic adult video games that are not designed for 15-year-olds. The prosecutor argues that the defendants allowed the shooter to play extremely violent, age-inappropriate video games, which then normalized the kinds of extreme violence found in the games. The prosecutor argues that allowing the shooter to play these games aggravated his violent tendencies and is relevant to the gross negligence element of the crime. The court agrees with the defense that unfortunately violent video games as well as movies are extremely common in United States homes with children. Evidence that the shooter played these games is relevant as it may have some tendency to make the existence of a fact at issue more probable. As the defense points out, these types of video games have become commonplace. Therefore, the probative value of the videos is not substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. They will be admitted pursuant to MRE 401, 402, and 403. Defendants also seek to exclude the shooter's Instagram photos, posts, and internet searches. The prosecution argues that Instagram photos, posts, and internet searches are relevant to show that the shooter displayed outward signs that he was on a pathway to violence, and that defendants would and should have recognized these signs if they had exercised ordinary care. The court is aware that it is the theory of the prosecution that the defendant should have known about these searches, photos, and posts. The defendants point out that a detective that testified at preliminary examination that the shooter had 3 separate Instagram accounts. However, he also confirmed that the defendants followed one account, and there was no evidence that the defendants knew the others existed. Although these accounts contained disturbing content, there's no evidence that the defendants knew about the shooter's internet searches or their content. There's no doubt that the Instagram photos, posts, and internet searches are relevant, highly probative. However, they are highly prejudicial, and there's no evidence that the defendants knew about the Instagram pictures, posts, or internet searches. Therefore, they will not be admitted. Defendants also seek to exclude evidence that the shooter killed a baby bird, recorded it, and kept a baby bird head in a jar in his bedroom.
This is a message to all streamers. Go to artlist.io and get the best music for your stream.
Reviewed the preliminary examination.
Hello and welcome.
As well as the journal on multiple times. There are statements in the journal involving a baby bird head being left in a jar in the bathroom at the school. However, the court's unclear about what evidence supports the proposition that the bird head was in a jar in the shooter's bedroom and therefore should have been discovered by the parents. So I guess I'm asking you about that because I read the journal and the preliminary examination transcript, and I keep in mind that I understand that evidence is probably still being developed as we sit here, and that you're still welcome to file motions. You need to keep in mind that I may have one or maybe two other cases, so the court needs some lag time. I know that there has probably been additional evidence since the time that you filed these motions. So my ruling is based on what you filed and what I have, what I know, all right? But are you able to comment on the baby bird head? Because the prosecutor's motion made it sound like it was in the shooter's closet for 5 months, but I couldn't find anything that said it was anywhere other than the bathroom, and I don't know if there's more than one baby bird head. Can you help me?
I can, Judge. Two points. The first, I'm glad you brought up that evidence is still being developed, because obviously this court's ruling is, and our responses were limited to the defense motions, and as we develop more evidence,
What's up?
witnesses, we develop.
Hey, sorry,
theories,
my
we'll
dad.
have more motions for the court and defense.
Oh, good.
So,
No, it's okay.
Birdhead specifically, Judge, we didn't admit
It's
all the
okay,
evidence
Big
in the
Mac.
preliminary examination because the court knows the burden is so low. It's probable cause.
I'm still over here just watching the case.
On every
This shit is
aspect,
getting
there's
pretty
additional
interesting
evidence,
over here.
Not before this court yet. On the bird head specifically, there's evidence on
This kid had a bird head in a jar
in a video.
in
There's evidence
his
in
room.
the text message to his friend. There's evidence in the journal and in the text message showing that
Who does
the
that
bird
shit?
head was kept in a jar in his room for a period of 5 months. He then took it to the school in November of 2021.
Okay.
And one other point too.
Who does that shit, bro? You
That for some
fucking
reason.
weird ass kid, bro.
Saying there was ever a bird head kept in his room or in his closet. The journal does not, believe me, I've read it more times than I would like to. It didn't say that.
That's in the. I'm sorry. I didn't
Yeah, go
interrupt
ahead.
you. That's in the 8,000 text message thread between
Okay.
the shooter and his friend.
Okay. And what else did you say that I had a comment on? It might be somewhere else and would support its admission because of the time frame, but are there any records from the school that someone found a bird head in the bathroom? I don't know. So, I mean, those things would help me. At the moment, I don't have any evidence on this record that there was a bird head in a jar on the day of the shooting, a day before, a week ago, a month, so.
Yes, there is, Judge. And again, we didn't admit all the evidence we had because we didn't need to.
Okay.
So a lot of different aspects of this case will be presented at trial. And again, we only responded to what the defense was contesting at this point in time.
Okay.
As we've begun consulting with an expert in the area of pathway to violence, we've learned of concepts such as crisis point, leakage. We've learned about incapable bystanders and social proof. So that's going to be a subject of a whole nother motion. I expect a Dauber challenge, but a lot of this evidence will be brought up again in those motions.
Okay. Do you want to comment at all? Do you understand my point, right?
Yes, Your Honor, and we have reviewed the discovery that's been provided thus far, and we don't have any evidence of corroboration of the statement beyond what Mr. Keese has indicated. So that there was a bird head in his room for any period of time, him being the shooter, we don't have any evidence of that.
Did you have all the internet searches and text and all that, right? I don't have any of that. I'm not asking for it at the moment, but so I'm going to reserve on that because if there was a bird head in a jar sitting on his desk in his room for 5 months, that could be relevant. But I don't. From what I have, I don't really know.
Thank you, Judge. We would be asking for the court to preserve ultimate opinion on the rest of it as well, because
When you said, what's the rest? The bird head?
regarding the entire motion to exclude evidence based upon relevance, because we have, like I said before, we're confined to what was in a limited record before this
The
court.
dude was fucking crazy, bro.
Your own motions.
Well, how was that not
We just don't want to
relevant?
be in a position where we're in a time frame for a motion for reconsideration.
How is that not relevant? That's completely relevant.
I appreciate
And
that.
obviously the parents were fucking crazy too. Shit, what the fuck was going on inside that house?
In a meeting with everybody involved.
Hell no,
We
bro.
do need some consideration for the fact that
Fucking weirdo.
around because we have a lot of other cases, and I'm happy to accommodate you and rule on any motions you might have. So Ms. Williams is going to send out an email to you asking I want your thoughts about, jury selection, because this doesn't happen every week. And, we have some ideas too about questionnaires, when they would go out. So, I guess, you're, either side's gonna be in position to, appeal a ruling they made, so if you're gonna ask me to state a case, I'm not going to.
I brought orders to deny. I have a box.
But you can read orders.
Yes, you read me. Your Honor, we have two motions that we plan to file an interlocutory appeal on.
Okay.
I wrote the order up that it is ordered and then granted or denied, so you could just check a box.
Okay.
I'm gonna show the proposed orders to the prosecution and see if the court would sign those today, denying the stay.
Thank you, Judge. The court's already indicated the
Do
ruling.
you have your own?
I don't.
No.
These are,
Not yet.
for the record, Judge, the people would oppose the stay.
I'm not staying the case.
Thank you.
Trying the case.
Well, we have to ask for the stay, obviously, in
I
order,
understand.
in
No,
order for
I
the Court of
understand.
Appeals to.
Anything else right now? I'm gonna reach out to you about the jury selection situation. Anything else, right, I can help you with right now? Anything else?
Nothing from Mr. Crumbly.
Okay.
Nothing on behalf of Mr. Crumbly, Your Honor.
Not from the people, Judge. Thank you.
All right, I did, whether you're happy or unhappy, I did spend a lot of time, and, appreciate you in briefing these issues, and, if you intend to file additional motions, you can make arrangements, with us.
Your Honor, when we meet, maybe we could talk about another set of scheduling dates, because
Sure.
I do know we have additional motions we need to file,
Okay.
and we want to keep the case moving, so.
Yeah.
I think, Your Honor, in fairness to the thousands of victims, we should at least address whether or not the trial date is reasonable, because we get that question many times a day.
I'm committed to it, but do you think the trial date isn't, reasonable? Do you think we won't be ready by then?
Well, with an interlocutory appeal, if one is going to be filed, that's going to.
I guess.
We also have to file another motion that includes all of the mountains of evidence we have that is not before the court due to the relevancy orders. So I think that's going to take some time and a Daubert hearing.
We're gonna have to have Daubert hearing? On your expert? You're anticipating?
I can't predict
Okay.
counsel's position. However,
You're offering an expert in what area? Do you know what?
I think we stated in our briefs regarding the pathway to violence. So we'll further brief it and put it before the court.
Okay. Do you think it will go to trial October 24th? There's a number of concerns. This is gonna take a great deal of manpower by everyone here. I don't like to have a jury sent home during Thanksgiving.
We also don't wish to try this case on the year anniversary of this horrible
I was just
event.
about to say that, and I don't want a Christmas jury, and so I'll do all within my power to try it on October 24th. So.
Your Honor, if I may, the concern we have is we just found out, 2 or 3 days ago that Ethan Crumbly's trial was moved to January, and
Yes. Why do I care?
because we need him as a witness in this trial.
Hilarious. Why do I care? Why do I care? Hilarious.
You can't take the picture.
So,
Well, he can answer questions that are not covered by the.
I don't really want to interrupt
So
it
he
right
can
now,
call his
Danny,
witness,
but I'll kind of explain
I'm
to
just
you
thinking that if
afterwards.
his trial is scheduled after, I suppose. he'll still-
But yeah, like it's a crazy ass case,
I
bro.
cannot conceive of the possibility how the defendants.
And like this kid was really fucked up. He really was going through some problems. And basically, like his parents were just like ignoring him the whole fucking time. They're like just like laughing in his face.
We need him to testify to information.
And now the parents
not
are
related
in
to
jail
his
because he
actual
did a mass
shootings,
shooting.
But related to extraneous matters that are important in the case.
So I guess I'm just, as an offer of proof, they want to call their son to somehow highlight his role instead of his parents. I'm just not sure how that's relevant.
No, Your Honor, that's
They have
not.
a right to call. They have a right to call him, right? But he can't take the Fifth Amendment in front of the jury, right? So
Right, so there's certain questions we would just not be able to ask. We do understand that. We have other questions we need to ask, and this is not about the defendants wanting to throw their son under the bus or make him look bad. This is about our clients defending the case.
I understand.
Okay.
I do.
And when the prosecution criticizes the defense for being selfish in wanting to defend the case, we are going to be selfish all day.
Okay.
We agree, because selfishly we have to protect their rights.
I understand.
I mean,
understand. Okay, so are you suggesting to me there's no way this is going in October? Is that what you're telling me?
Your Honor, I don't know that it can go in October, and I think that if we're all being
Is
honest
the
with
defense
ourselves.
asking for an adjournment? I mean, maybe you should put that in writing. I certainly, I'm very cognizant that both of your clients are sitting in jail, and I'm very concerned about that, and I want to give them a speedy trial. I don't know that I can end the suffering of the victims in this case, but the longer it goes out, on and on.
Your Honor, I don't mean to interrupt the court, but I think we have to at least acknowledge, and there are lawyers on our team that have personally appeared in the shooter's case. And by the way, this court has agreed to, and there was a stipulation not to use his name.
Mm-hmm.
However, the court, in that case, I believe his attorney and the court
What's
have
up? What's
present
up?
interest to have
Spontaneous
his case
note.
tried after this one.
Looks like you're a
And so
new
I think
viewer.
we just-
Appreciate
I just
you for
wanted to
coming through.
Make sure the court's aware of that, and defense counsel, because if their position is they want this tried
Wow,
after,
I said
you know,
spontaneous.
we have a problem. So we're ready to go
Spontaneous.
whenever you set the.
I said spontaneous, bro. That's
I have been in contact with
suspicious.
because there are obviously concerns. I did wonder when reading these
Yeah.
sections if it was off or not.
Suspicious note.
My-
I said spontaneous.
You can.
I'm fucking
submit
high.
any motion you need to on behalf of your clients, and I expect you to
That's the best one yet.
represent your clients to the fullest.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So there we are tonight. I'm gonna send you an email.
Oh shit, bro. That's funny. That's actually
Yeah,
pretty fucking
absolutely.
funny, bro.
We appreciate that.
Well,
We'll draft
how's your
the in order with regards
how's your day
to
going, bro?
communication to the press.
And
separate.
are you familiar with this
So
case
opinions,
right here that's going on?
Those opinions and orders that will be
The
received
parents
by
that
these
have been arrested
Okay,
because
so the
their
court is doing the opinion
son
on
did a mass
interpretations.
shooting. Are you familiar with this case?
I'll do an order.
Okay, and then we just did the order on the stay issue, so
And there was.
And no, Danny, I'm not gonna stay off the weed.
we did
Danny,
get that,
We did
thank
get
you.
that, Your Honor.
I stay smoking
Yeah,
the
this-
weed.
This was very time intensive, so we'll just be doing orders.
Danny
you.
Phantom.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Goddamn Danny Phantom. Okay.
Explain what happened.
Well, anyway, basically, cause it looks like it's damn near over now. But basically, like basically, this kid right here. I think this happened like last year, or yeah. I think this happened like last year sometime. But anyway, basically, like this kid was like really fucked up and was showing some like disturbing signs. Even they recently just brought up that this kid had like a fucking bird's head in a jar for 5 months in his room, and then he took it to school. And then like the parents didn't even know about that, you know. And then they were bringing up like he had this whole diary, you know, explaining what was going on in his life, and you know, was like posting stuff on like Facebook, like expressing like his thoughts and stuff, and like was like explaining to people like how he was trying to reach out to his parents, but like his parents would just like ignore him or whatnot. So it seems like the kid was trying to reach out for help and was trying to you know, get some type of help or whatnot, but people just kept on ignoring him. So that's just crazy, bro.
Okay.
But yeah, let me
about 6 o'clock ish.
look up some videos for y'all real quick so y'all can kind of get a gist of what's going on. We're not about to watch all that, and fuck fucking Roland. That dude is so fucking annoying. Trying to find one real quick. God damn, dude. Is this one it? I don't fuck. Fuck, why don't they just have like a like okay, let me go to this one.
$1,200.
I'm just scrolling through political category. Okay, bro. Well, sure, I definitely appreciate you for stopping through, bro. For real. What state you from, and where do you lean politically? Do you lean more left or do you lean more right?
The first time I heard
New tonight, the Local 4 defenders give us an inside look at the chilling plans detailed within the journal of the defendant in the Oxford school shooting, Ethan Crumbley. That journal was with the 15-year-old student on November 30th.
It was in his backpack along with a handgun when Crumbley was in his school counselor's office with his parents. Local 4 defender Sean Lay has a look at the journal that lays out sinister plans to shoot classmates. And Sean, it also contains cries for help, too.
Absolutely. I got a look at 2 pages of this journal. Let me give you 4 things written by Ethan Crumbley on 2 of these pages, like, I will tell close friends not to come the day of the shooting. He writes, I have lost every hope of life. Also writes, help me, and I want to shoot up the school so badly. And that is just the start. The Local 4 defenders obtaining these key photos from the Oxford school shooting. That is Ethan Crumbley's backpack on the bathroom floor, where he first pulled this semi-automatic handgun from that backpack and began his horrific shooting spree. Also inside the backpack, Ethan Crumbley's journal, where in chilling detail, Crumbley lists his entire school shooting plan. The gun and the plan, all in the backpack and with Crumbley in his school counselor's office before the shooting. Buck Meir, father of victim Tate Meir, and his attorney Ben Johnson say the counselor and other Oxford officials just needed to look in the backpack.
Looking at backpack. Guys, in the backpack, right?
What do you mean you don't know what's wrong and right? I'm sure you have an opinion. What does that mean, bro? You still have an opinion, bro. That doesn't mean that you're just like hollow or whatnot. You still have an opinion. Hey, Danny, are you still up in here, bro? If so, when did you want to play Ninja Turtles? But yeah, bro, that's funny. Hey, bro, if you could, please hit that follow. Please hit that follow. And if you do like talking about stuff like this, I do have I do host a political panel every Friday and Saturday nights, just like this weekend. And like if you want to stop by and just let us know how you feeling about like a certain topic, or if you would just like to hop in and just like to join in talk with us, then just feel free to stop by. But I'll post the Discord down below. And it's not always just about politics either. Sometimes we just be up in there just bullshit, just talking, getting to know each other and whatnot. But yeah, if you could, please hit that follow and please join the Discord. I would greatly appreciate it. All right. What was I doing?
Right? The gun and right? That's and the journal.
Let's break down just some of what is written on 2 pages of the journal. It reads, quote, my name is Ethan Robert Crumbley. I want the world to remember me. There's a checklist, a 9mm pistol with extra mags, 2 to 5 Molotov cocktails, flares, gloves, hat, jacket, mask, and knife. Crumbley writes that he will exit the classroom and, quote, then shoot any girl, pretty. In the back of the head, I will shoot anyone I see, aiming for their head. I will then find a full class and throw Molotov cocktails in there. Crumbley goes on to write, quote, I will continue shooting people until police breach the building. I will then surrender to them and plead guilty to life in prison. The gun, the plan, the backpack, Ethan Crumbley, his parents, and school counselor were all together hours before the shooting. Here's Local 4 legal analyst Neil Rockheim.
The reason that this is such an important watershed landmark case is that all of this happens together at the same time with the parents, with the counselor. It is, in my view, a failure, an institutional failure of catastrophic proportion across the board.
Again, we're getting a look at 2 pages of the journal. I'm told there are more than 20 pages of the journal. Every word, I'm told, will be read at Ethan Crumbley's trial and at the trial for his parents, who are charged with involuntary manslaughter. I'm Defender Sean Lay, Local 4. Back to you.
Just gut-wrenching. Absolutely gut-wrenching, Sean.
All right. Oh, that was interesting. Now we're about to switch tones. Alrighty. Let's check this out, cause I've been curious about this, bro.
An influx of thousands of migrants has caused a diplomatic row between Morocco and Spain and raised concern about the fate.
Anybody still up in here? Anybody still up in here?
Fate of those streaming in from North Africa into Ceuta. So, why are these people taking this risky route? And how does it affect migration across Europe? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. Many migrants using dinghies have often made the dangerous journey from Morocco into Spain. But this week, an influx of at least 8,000 people was unusually high, threatening a humanitarian crisis. Many were young men, but there were also families and unaccompanied minors. At least one person died making the crossing. Thousands have been expelled by the Spanish authorities. Campaigners are worried the migrants' rights have been violated during what they describe as a rapid pace of expulsions. The number of arrivals has now dropped in what appears to be an attempt by Moroccan authorities to tighten border controls. Police scuffled with people as they tried to force their way into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta. The event has caused a diplomatic row between the two countries. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, let's hear one boy's story.
You watch your parents unable to work. The education system is very weak. What can I say? People don't have much to eat. My parents thought that if I came here I could have a future over in Morocco. Even with a diploma, it is like you have nothing. I'm cold. All I want is some clothes. I don't have anything.
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to boast about them. جاءكم أهل اليمن. The people of Yemen has come. They're soft-hearted. They have the wisdom. They have the yaqeen. They have the knowledge.
Inshallah ta'ala, humanity is looking to make.
So why has Ceuta become a flashpoint in all of this? The tiny enclave is found right here on the African side of the Strait of Gibraltar. It's one of 2 Spanish territories on mainland Africa. Despite fences and strict policing, thousands attempt to cross from Morocco into Ceuta every year. The Spanish government has accused Morocco of being responsible for the influx of migrants and has threatened to use force to stop people entering. The president of Ceuta called the influx an invasion. Morocco has denied that and recalled its ambassador from Madrid. Rabat is reported to have been angered after Spain allowed in the head of the Polisario Front, Ibrahim Ghali, for medical treatment last month. The Polisario Front and Morocco are technically still at war over the Western Sahara, a former Spanish colony in North Africa that's been under Rabat's control since 1975. And Morocco continues to claim the enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla. On Wednesday, Spain's High Court summoned Ghali over alleged war crimes, but he refused to acknowledge it. All right, let's bring in our guests in Brussels. Catherine Woolard is Secretary General of European Council on Refugees and Exiles. In Madrid, Ruth Ferrero is lecturer in political science and senior researcher at Complutense University of Madrid. In Rabat, Lahsan Haddad is strategic affairs analyst and former Moroccan minister. A warm welcome to you all. Catherine, let me start with you today. So more than 8,000 migrants arrived on the beaches of Ceuta in just a couple of days. How does this sudden and very large arrival compare to movements of migrants in the past few years? And has there ever in the past been an arrival at one time of this magnitude?
We've seen similar arrivals and in other parts of Europe, and this is due to the record numbers of people who are forcibly displaced globally. There are more refugees than there have ever been before, and the majority of those arriving in Europe are refugees. There's also people who are forced to move for other reasons. We would urge Spain, as all countries in Europe, to respect EU and international law when faced with these arrivals of people. And despite the dramatic scenes, the overall numbers of people arriving are manageable. I think what we see here is also the risk of relying on other countries outside Europe, such as Morocco or such as Turkey, to try to prevent people from coming to Europe. And that creates the risk that we see in an unrelated diplomatic incident, as you so rightly described, that people are instrumentalized or used to pursue other ends.
Ruth, Spain's Foreign Minister Arantxa González Laya has said that Spain believes Morocco loosened its border controls in retaliation for Spain having given medical assistance to the Polisario Front head, Brahim Ghali. From your vantage point, do you think that this was a retaliatory move by Morocco?
I believe that this is the excuse for Morocco to open the gates for 48 hours. I think there is some more deeply geopolitical concerns on Morocco's side, which are linked with the recognition of the United States of Donald Trump to recognize the sovereignty of Morocco over Sahara province, Sahara territory. So this Sahrawi person in the hospital has been just an excuse to overreact with this kind of, as my colleague just said, instrumentalize people to reach political goals.
Lahsan, Morocco had warned of consequences for harboring Brahim Ghali. Is this what Morocco meant? Are we hearing more from Moroccan officials about all this?
I don't think there is an instrumentalization or weaponization of migration on the part of Morocco, and the majority of those who have crossed have returned. About 5,000 have returned. And migration in huge numbers has always existed between the two countries, and I think there was collaboration between the two. But the fact that it happened in the wake of diplomatic tensions then led to a lot of interpretation, like there is blackmail on the part of Morocco, but what is interesting is that the Moroccan-Spanish crisis that existed these last weeks, the Spanish have been pretending that they are the victims of crisis, whereas they are responsible for this. They shouldn't have done what they have done. I mean, like admitting somebody who is accused of being a war criminal and being, like somebody who committed like genocide kind of crimes, and who has been at war with Morocco, who acts on the behalf of Algeria to attack the territorial integrity of Morocco, and is requested by the Spanish justice system, that's something that is not understandable at all. Even the Spanish people don't understand how the Spanish government could do that. And not only do they do that, but they do it with the complicity of Algeria. And he was brought with a false Algerian passport in the name of Mohammed Ben Battoush, put in a hospital, and they were expecting that the Moroccan secret services would not know that. So that's a little bit like naive. So there was like a mismanagement on the part of the Spanish government, and they have not explained to the Moroccans like what is the intelligence of the strategy, why is it like geopolitically sound, how would you do that with a partner, I mean, like, and with whom you have a lot of interest, like Morocco. That's something that is mind-boggling. And I think what happened in terms of the migration, the mass migration in Ceuta, just added and exacerbated an already kind of tense diplomatic relation between the Spanish and the Moroccans. And I think these kinds of things happen, but I believe that this happened at this moment, and it's unfortunate. But also, I think it does not mean that the Moroccan government has used the Moroccan government. Probably, I've been in the government. We don't have like something to push, and then you have thousands of people who would migrate. But I think there is an objective situation in the north of Morocco whereby the economic livelihood of a lot of people have been diminished because of the closure of the border with Ceuta and Melilla. And the second one is that the pandemic has also made like people's livelihood.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let me get back to you on that point that you're making about the pandemic in just a couple of moments, because I do want to follow up with you on that. Catherine, I saw you nodding to some of what Lahsan was saying there. It looked like you wanted to jump in. Please go ahead.
Yes, I think it's a complex situation. There are multiple reasons why people move. Many are forced to move due to economic concerns, but also war, conflict, and so on. And I think from our side, underlying this recent incident is the European strategy of relying on other countries to try to prevent people coming to Europe. And we would suggest instead a longer term, more nuanced strategy on the part of Europe. So that would involve, for instance, reopening legal routes for migration so that there isn't this humanitarian crisis evolving week by week in the Mediterranean. And that means legal routes for people who are seeking asylum, but also for people who want to come to Europe to work, which is much needed. And in the last 20 years, we've seen an ever-increasing reduction in the opportunities for legal migration into Europe. So I think those are ways to deal with this. In addition, we would suggest a more collective approach by Europe so that the countries where people arrive are not left alone and are changing the rules so that there's fairer sharing of responsibility within Europe. I would also add that we can't ignore the history in all of this. These enclaves exist, they're part of Europe's colonial legacy in Africa, and as such, they're rather vulnerable because they're enclaves on another continent.
What's going on, man?
That doesn't justify the actions of
What you got
either
going on
government,
today?
but all those factors have to be taken into account rather than a sort of knee-jerk reaction, which is
What you got
simply
going on, man?
build fences to prevent people moving.
Ruth, so we've been talking a bit about how Brahim Ghali and his treatment in Spain has really been sort of at the center of this diplomatic dispute between Spain and Morocco. It's been reported that Spain's High Court has served Ghali with a June 1st summons for a preliminary hearing in a war crimes case against him, and that this is potentially the first step towards a trial for the Polisario Front leader. Do you think that we will see Ghali in a court in Spain
What's up?
in the near future?
I don't hesitate that it will appear in front of the court, but let me contextualize the whole thing and why I mentioned that I think this issue is just an excuse made by the Moroccan government. In March, there was a diplomatic conflict also between Rabat and Germany. They even didn't open any communication with the German ambassador. And this is inside of a bigger negotiation, and we are expecting a new sentence coming from Luxembourg Court of Justice, the European Court of Justice, by which apparently the agreement reached between Morocco and the European Union on association and fisheries will be laid down. And
Chris.
So that
Chris, are you still there, bro?
Suspension of the agreement will delegitimize the Morocco authorities on the territory of the Western Sahara. So we have to reach and to focus and to frame the whole situation in a bigger picture, in which it included these issues on sovereignty, issues on geopolitics, issues on trade, and also trying coming and the pushing of Morocco
All right,
to
for sure.
change
Yeah, no, I was asking you what you was up to today.
European Union. So I think we have
What you got
to
going on?
analyze it in the whole frame. On the other hand, I'm totally agree with the issues that Catherine is mentioned.
Mhm.
But since we have to, so I support 100% what she was just saying. We are leaving our migration policy in the hands of non-democratic countries like Turkey or even Morocco. And this is not the way. We have to change radically the migration governance of the European Union and the member states, and also on the global side. So we cannot pay off all these blackmails that have been doing these countries, like Turkey did last year on the Greece borders, or what the Morocco is doing right now, because they wanted to reach political goals through using people, poor people, which also, of course, they are affected about the pandemic and the syndemia, if you want, on the socioeconomic impact of this. And also because a lot of these guys and women and child that were crossing by, they used to be working in Ceuta.
Okay, that's
so since the borders were closed for all this time,
Well, shoot,
they
if you want to
really would
afterwards,
need, because
stop
they
by
are
if
not
you
very
want to,
protected.
sure.
And let me do a criticism
Ruth,
also to
Ruth,
the treatment that the Spanish government
But
is
yeah,
doing
have
to
you
the-
heard about
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Cause Zay was telling me about this I guess like some people had died, like 18 people had died while like migrating to Spain. But like it sounds like Spain and Morocco been having like problems or something like that. I don't know.
Interrupt you. Let me just go over to Lahsan right now, because I interrupted you before. You were making a point about some of the underlying causes of the migration, from your vantage point, and you were starting to talk about the pandemic as one of them. Please go ahead.
No, just to respond to what Ruth has just said, I don't think, I mean, like there has been a lot of Spanish also coming to Morocco, and because they come legally, then there was no problem with them. So I agree with Catherine that legal kind of migration should be the issue to these kinds of situations. There is much need for labor in Europe. But for example, there are about 20,000 Spanish people who came to Morocco after the financial crisis, and they are there because, there are no hurdles for that. But I mean, the other thing, like Ruth says that democratic and non-democratic countries and the Spanish government who hosts a war criminal, that says a lot about like what kind of democracy we're talking about here. But anyway, with regard to blackmailing, the Moroccans, when I talked to the Moroccan officials, and they said, well, look, what the Spanish want us to be is to be zealous gendarmes of illegal migration. They want us to be loyal partners in the fight against terrorism. They want us to be good economic partners. They want us to be understanding to colonial situation whereby Ceuta and Melilla are colonized by Spain, but still the Moroccans need to probably like take it easy with regard to that. At the same time, when there is a problem, they need to be silent. Otherwise, the Spanish, you know what they will tell you? They will tell you, you are blackmailing us. You are using migration. You are using terrorism in order to blackmail us, in order to make concessions. I don't think this is partnership, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, having analyzed a lot of other things, I mean, with regard to that. But I mean, let's go back to what are the roots of this kind of
Lahsan, I'm sorry. Lahsan, I'm sorry again, let me. I'll get right back to you. I saw Ruth there raise her hand and wanted to respond to something you said, so I wanted to let her go. Ruth, just please keep it brief so I can get back to Lahsan, and then I need to ask Catherine another question, please.
Yes, just to mention, I'm not an official from the Spanish government, and probably I'm agree with my colleague in here, but this is not the point we're discussing right now.
Yeah, bro, I don't go back to work till Wednesday. So yeah, bro, I'm off today. But yeah, I'm just over here editing the Discord right now. Trying to make the Discord a little bit better. If you see in the Discord now, bro, like I got what, like 85 people. What's up, Holy Flesh? Appreciate you for coming by. You know, I always appreciate you for coming by. Have you seen the Morocco Spain border thing? Yeah, bro, that's actually what I'm covering right now. That's actually what I'm going over right now. Have you heard about it? Now that's what real border security looks like. USA should take note. Oh wow, bro. See, now that just fucked up. That's fucked up, Holy Flesh. Why would you say something like that? That's out of line. 18 people died, bro. 18 Moroccans at that died to some damn Spaniards.
The government authorities
Damn
just opened up
Spaniards,
the borders of the between Morocco and Ceuta. There has not been any explanation about it coming from the Morocco government. There is no cause effect in anything that you have just said that explains why this agreement that had been reached between the European Union, because we cannot forget that this is a border of the European Union with a third country, which in this case is Morocco, has been not accomplished. And they had just laid down and opened the gates and let these poor guys going through the waters.
All right, Lahsan, please go ahead if you want to respond to Ruth.
No, just yeah. I mean, we can go back to this point that Ruth has raised, but let's go back to the reasons. One of the reasons is like the idea of a fortress Europe that has really like walls and all of that, preventing all the people from coming there. I don't think that has borne any kinds of fruits. It has led to these kinds of problems. So I agree with Catherine that we need to go into legal issues and allowing this kind of migration to happen in a very legal manner. The second thing is like because of the colonial situation in Ceuta and Melilla, then and also a lot of, I mean, like what has been happening is a lot of contraband.
What'd you say, bro?
From Ceuta and Melilla and hurting
I'm gonna
the
come to
Moroccan
the crib
economy. The
later on.
Moroccans
So my
have
mom
closed the borders for
bring the
economic
camera.
kind of interaction.
All right,
That
for
meant
sure.
that a lot of livelihoods
That's
up
cool.
in
That's
the
cool.
north of Morocco.
I
have
don't
been
know how
hurt,
John
and the
gonna act.
pandemics have added to that. So I think these kinds of
We'll
issues
see.
are what needs to be discussed.
If anything, we can
I
all
don't
just
think that
separate
we
them.
have proof that the Moroccans have opened the gates.
What's
And as I
the
have said
point of
before,
having a
Moroccans
border
don't
if you
have like
let
these
anyone
kinds of
through?
gates full of people, and then
Wanna
sometimes they open them and they
see
swarm
an
to
even
Ceuta
more
and Melilla. I don't
expensive
think
border? Look
that's
at
really
Korea.
credible, and people who are on the ground would see that for
That's what I'm talking
themselves.
about.
But this
No, for
this
real, for real.
exists in the Spanish
But yeah, bro, like
imagination a lot, that Morocco is
I understand you on that though, Morocco. Holy Flesh, because I feel the same way about that, like with like America, you know, as far as like immigration. So like I see what you're talking about, like with like as far as the immigration or whatnot. But like I don't know, like they've always had a long time beef, you know, and their beef goes deep, you know, and that's on some other shit. So I would say it's a little bit different. But yeah, like I get where you're coming from, like as far as immigration though. It's Spain's fault that the Africans were migrating there. They pillaged the resources in Africa, so what choice do they have? Damn, Holy Flesh. What do you have to say to that? What you got to say to that, Holy Flesh?
Only they're harboring like thousands of people, and at any moment that there was a brawl with the Spanish, then they let those go. I don't think that that's the situation. I think there is a very important economic situation, socioeconomic situation that needs to be dealt with. There is a problem of livelihoods. There is a problems of perception of an El Dorado on the other side, and there are also like policy problems with regard to the European Union when it comes to migration. If these things are not addressed, we will have these kinds of situations, and we will have like all kinds of instrumentalization of these kinds of issues.
Catherine, let me ask you this. So rights groups have been warning that the fact that these migrants have been returned to Morocco as quickly as they have, that could mean that migrant rights are being violated. They've said that there hasn't been enough time to carry out examinations of individual circumstances, that migrants may not have had a chance to apply for asylum or to make other types of claims. Do you believe that what we've seen play out over these past few days, the rapid expulsion, no matter if there's an agreement between the two countries, but do you believe that this rapid expulsion of these migrants is a violation of either European law, international human rights law, or refugee law?
It's possible that violations are taking place, and we've joined the calls expressing concern about the situation. And we would underline that people arriving in any EU member state, or even indeed at the border of any EU member state, are under the jurisdiction of that country. This means that EU asylum law applies, and also international law under the European Convention on Human Rights, international refugee law. So a situation where people are being collectively expelled without individual assessment is a situation that's illegal under both EU and international law. And instead, there should be an individualized assessment. And indeed, there's also standards and legal obligations when it comes to the reception of people arriving. So there may be issues concerned with access to asylum, and then in terms of the treatment of people where states have obligations to respect the Reception Conditions Directive and procedural obligations. And these are complex situations because there may be refugees and people with other kind of statuses, but the way to determine what is the appropriate path for somebody is to do the individual assessment. And on that basis, it can be determined if the person has protection needs, as many people arriving in Europe do under the Refugee Convention, or under subsidiary protection due to fleeing from conflict, for example.
Ruth, I saw you nodding to some of what Catherine was saying, so I'm going to give you a chance to jump in. But I also want to ask you, do we have any idea what exactly is happening to the unaccompanied minors who have arrived in Ceuta? Are they being sent back as well? Because as I understand it, from what I've read, Spanish law dictates that these unaccompanied minors must remain in Spanish territory until there's a further investigation, a determination about their status, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm totally agree with Catherine.
No, seriously, Europe is turning
a
into
violation of not just international
You're right
laws on
about that one.
refugees. Also, there's a violation of the norms and the sentence and the jurisprudence made by the Human Rights Court in Strasbourg, and also the Constitutional Court of Justice in Spain, that had made a jurisprudence, a sentence on last December, saying that they have procedures to be accomplished, and in the way in which the deportations the refusals are being done on the borders right now are clearly violating those sentences. So totally agree with Catherine. On the minors, non-accompanied minors, they cannot be deported at all. It is the responsibility of the autonomous region and the state to take care of them and give them provisions for taking care and social services, etc., until they're older than 18 years old. We have to see now, I guess, in the next few days, how these different autonomous communities are going to be offering places in their territories, because of course those boys and girls cannot remain in Ceuta because there are a lot of them, and it's not a possibility for them to remain in this field. The main problem is that because the Spanish authorities are not following the rule of law, some of those childs have been deported already. And so we have to follow up and see what happened. On the other hand, there's some curious movements on the border. I guess our colleague from Morocco can tell us about it, because a lot of them, a big proportion of them, the guys who were entering the borders, they just go out of the borders by their foot. So they were not forced to do it, not just minors, but also adults and other people. So it's kind of suspicious that they were like going on an excursion and then going out. But I really don't know what's going on there. So maybe our Moroccan colleague can help us with that.
Well, we've just run out of time, so we're going to have to leave the discussion there. But I want to thank all of the guests today, Catherine Woolard, Ruth Ferrero, and Lahsan Haddad.
All right, so I hope y'all are still here. I hope both of y'all are still up in here. Now, what I'm about to look up is actually pretty damn crazy. This just recently happened.
People ask me all the time, Chris, if you could only take one supplement for the rest of your life, which one would it be? The answer is
where it was put in a can. This is what slavery looks like in 21st century Britain. Although slavery was abolished over a century ago in the UK, the trade still thrives to this very day under horrific circumstances. According to Liberate Children, an organisation fighting child sex trafficking, they estimate that roughly 1 in 200 people are in modern-day slavery worldwide. To break this down, you have to understand that there are a few reasons as to why people are brought into the modern-day slave trade. Of course, in some cases, it's forced, but mainly it's poverty. People living in a part of the world where they might receive a low income and they're promised a better life, a better job, and are trafficked to another part of the world where, sadly, they're brought into the slave trade. Victims of modern-day slavery have their human rights violated, sometimes forced to do dangerous labour, and other times are met with psychological or physical damage due to the treatment they've received, all while living in squalor, the complete opposite of what they were first promised. In 2020, ITV News ran a story via the UK's FBI, the National Crime Agency, or the NCA for short. The organisation's estimate of people currently in slavery across the nation are well in the hundreds of thousands. What types of modern-day slavery would you see in the UK, though? Well, they come in the form of forced sexual exploitation or forced labour on farm.
No, for real, they need to start fucking with everybody else then. Focus on staying alive.
In construction, shops, bars, nail bars, car washes, or manufacturing. Some people have even been caught up in a scheme called debt bondage, mainly within the social care sector but not isolated. Debt bondage sees agencies charging unsuspected people a hefty fee for a visa application. Normally a fee would be in the range of about £250, but these agencies or people connected to the applicant are charging way over that price. In one reported incident, one person was charged £18,000. That's a rough 7,000% increase. The scheme is being classed as something that would fall under modern-day slavery. Passports are withheld, money is taken without consent, and until you've paid that debt off, you in a sense won't gain your freedom back. But now that we've briefly summed up what modern-day slavery looks like in 21st century Britain, we've got to head over to Bristol down in the southwest of England for today's case, where in 2017, Maros Tankos and Joanna Gomulska were eventually arrested by officers in the NCA after a lengthy investigation into the pair regarding one of the worst cases of modern-day slavery they'd ever seen. In 2008, Maros Tankos and his partner Joanna Gomulska relocated from their native Czech Republic to the United Kingdom in the bids to start out on a better life for themselves. It was fresh, something new, and within the first year they set up a car wash business in Bristol, Mario's Car Wash. Over that first year, the pair had been back and forth between both countries, visiting family and friends. They'd almost bragged about how easy it was to make a decent living for themselves in a country which they now called home. While out there, they'd also been visiting orphanages and group homes where they had links to. However, it's not known how they were even in those circles to begin with. We'll never know the true intentions of the couple, whether it be for better or for worse, but in the public eye, the two had been going from home to home, telling the most vulnerable of society about a dreamland called the United Kingdom, and how it brought them riches beyond their wildest imaginations. Of course, this drew many in. They had lived in extreme poverty, and before you know it, tens of people would want to make that trip, hoping that they too one day could go back home and provide a better life for their loved ones. But you know the theme of this story, that was never going to be the case. Maros and Joanna had planned for a bunch of people to come over to the UK and start working at the car wash on the basis that they would keep half of their wages every month, whilst the other half would go towards their food, living costs, and some money for themselves. For that first year or so, that could definitely have been the case. However, we can trace slavery-type conditions back to 2010, a mere year or so after opening the car wash business. For the following 7 years, as many as 42 people are thought to have fell victim to the pair, becoming what authorities would describe as modern slaves. Upon arrival, identity documents would be seized by Joanna, and she would oversee anything document-related. For example, she would release their documents when they applied for national insurance numbers or bank accounts. The majority of the time, the victims couldn't speak a word of English, so Joanna would assist them and act as an interpreter. This would seem like a kind act, but once those appointments finished, she would take control of everything bank-related. Cards, online banking, PIN numbers, you name it. She would control it. Victims that would eventually speak out would go on to say that they felt like the couple had some kind of hold over them once those documents were gone, but that was just the start of it. Now that the couple had control of identity documents, it was time to force them into unpaid work at the car wash. Sometimes they would work for 12 hours a day. Not just that, even after working a shift, again sometimes 12 hours, they'd be forced to go and do other work away from the car wash at night, meaning they'd have little to no sleep. A lot of the time this was agency work. In an account from one victim, he quoted a time where he had broke his arm in a cycling incident. The injury had become swollen and green. He was subsequently taken to the hospital where it was put in a cast. The next day, Maros had him back out working in the car wash using his non-broken arm. He would go on to work 7 days a week for 12 hours a day. Over the span of the 7 years, the couple pocketed roughly £920,000 from wages that they should have paid to the victims. This would have been calculated on a minimum wage basis, whilst £300,000 was pocketed from the agency work. They used the money for online gambling, visits to the casino, buying cars, their own living costs, amongst other things. They were living the high life off the backs of the victims they had in their home. Reports say that up to 10 people at a time were living in the house. Did the couple ever think to make the house somewhat nice for them? No, they lived in squalor. The mattresses were so old and broken that layers of cardboard had been used to try and make them stronger and a little bit more comfortable to sleep on. 10 people had to share one bathroom, and the victims, well, they had next to nothing. If they asked for the most basic necessities, food, drinks, they would be handed death threats and threats of violence. Sometimes beatings were given. And once work was completed, they were locked within their rooms and weren't allowed to leave unless it was for work. It was horrendous. In one incident, a mother had built up the courage to flee the situation after she gave birth to a malnourished child. But it wasn't like that in every room. No, Maros and Joanna's room was spotless. They had a nice bed, electrical goods, expensive clothes, you name it, it was there. The power dynamic was clear to see. This was a textbook case of modern-day slavery. This was all due to change in 2017, though.
Get exactly what you want on Wayfair. Cute table. Kelly Clarkson. Like a multifunctional find that does it all. That's cool. A lot of storage in a small space. Is it weird if I buy the same one because I maybe just did? Woohoo! And a kitchen refresh in a snap. Side table food wagon? This kitchen cart is the best. It does it all.
A drink bar?
One quick swap, bam, it's a whole new look.
Shall we?
Yes, we shall.
$1,200, $5,000, and this one is $3,000. Every single month I get paid by Audible.
If you don't know what Audible is, it's actually owned by Amazon, which is one of the biggest marketplaces in the world. But instead, Audible is where you can buy podcasts or audiobooks. The first time I heard about this was actually 3 years ago when I met Christian. Christian showed me how he was using Audible and how he was replacing his full-time income by just putting up these audio files on Audible. So he showed it to me, and then pretty much in a few months, I started doing the same thing, and it allowed me to quit my full-time job. Then I taught the same process to my mom, and my mom is making about $900 a month right now, and I'm even teaching it to my little brother so that he can pay for college. I want to show you how I was able to do this, but obviously this is an ad. If you click the link below, you'll be able to attend a free training where we walk through a very simple 4-step process on how you can do the same thing for yourself. And the best part is it's very beginner friendly. I knew nothing about online business or even that you could, sell things online, and I was able to make it work. My mom has no business experience. She doesn't even speak perfect English, and she was able to make this happen. And my brother is 18 and he's doing this. So this really is for anybody, no matter where you are.
In February of 2017, an allegation was made to Slovakian authorities by a native man. He'd explained he'd escaped from the United Kingdom after being exploited while working for the couple. This information was then passed on to the National Crime Agency, who opened an investigation. As a result, surveillance was conducted for 5 months on both individuals, which revealed that they were transporting victims not only from their house to the car wash, but also to a factory that they had been signed up for through different employment agencies. But still, it wasn't enough to go ahead with charges. That was until it was clear to the National Crime Agency that the pair had control over the accounts, mainly stemming from the agency work they had done. Remember, $300,000 was transferred to Maros and Joanna's accounts. In July of 2017, the pair were then arrested and were eventually charged in relation to trafficking of another person into the United Kingdom for labour exploitation, 4 counts of conspiracy to traffic persons into the United Kingdom for labour exploitation, 2 counts of conspiracy to arrange or facilitate the travel of a person into the United Kingdom with a view to exploitation, 2 counts of conspiracy to require another to perform forced labour, and conspiracy to acquire criminal property. The pair would go on to deny the allegations brought against them until they went on trial, which was scheduled for 2019. However, due to the pandemic, it had been pushed to 2022. When 2022 swung around, thanks to 29 of the 42 victims that stepped forward to make statements about their time as a modern slave to the couple, it secured a guilty verdict on every count that was brought against them. In June of 2022, Maros was handed a 16-year jail sentence, whilst Joanna was handed a 9-year sentence.
This is Dave. He realized getting internet from one company and TV from multiple providers was costing him a lot. So Dave switched to Spectrum and saved with internet and TV from $49.99 per month each. Now Dave saves a ton.
dhar ma haysano saan anaga waxaanu qaawanahay waa dhar laan.
In 2017, footage from Libya showed migrants being sold as slaves.
These men are sold for 1,200 Libyan pounds, $400 apiece.
The exploitation prompted outrage and was described as modern slavery, a term now used for the 40 million people worldwide that are being exploited. From trapped construction workers in Dubai to women exploited for sex by traffickers.
I was also taken into a few other countries for the sole purpose of being trafficked and being sold.
The fight to end modern slavery has become a celebrated cause, championed by celebrities,
Beaten, starved, tortured, raped,
and governments.
This house and this country that is leading the campaign against modern slavery.
But this fight isn't completely what it seems. While EU governments promise to tackle slavery in Libya,
il est indispensable de prévenir ces situations. Les dénoncer, les condamner sur le plan du droit international est indispensable.
Behind closed doors, they spent millions strengthening borders and returning people to overcrowded Libyan prisons. It was a policy that left more people at risk of being sold into slavery. Governments have pledged millions to tackle modern slavery.
We're going to deal with human trafficking and end the scourge of modern-day slavery.
But how genuine are these attempts?
There's a lot of propaganda the government's put out today to say that they want to address human trafficking.
And is the term being used to justify tough immigration policies? This is how governments are misleading us about their fight to end modern slavery.
There's immigrants in the back, but they're all lying on the ground.
Okay, are they breathing?
I don't think so.
In October 2019, 39 people were found dead in a refrigerated lorry in Essex. Politicians quickly pointed to human traffickers who move people by coercion in order to exploit them.
We are dealing with those that are using people for the most appalling purposes.
But in this instance, those who died had not been coerced into travelling to the UK.
One of the fathers of one of the people who died has said since his son was just trying to create a better life for himself and his family back in Vietnam, and they can't do it legally.
Rất là nhiều cái hy vọng của gia đình hai bên cả nội cả ngoại.
With no access to legal routes, those inside the lorry had used human smugglers to try to cross into the UK.
So they'd been in that lorry because they'd been trying to enter the UK without permission, and it was the only way they could do that.
While smugglers need to be held accountable for profiting from desperate individuals, governments also focus the blame on these criminals to distract us from their own policies that help fuel modern slavery.
The politicians point to sad and tragic instances like this as being trafficking. It's because it makes us think the person to blame is that baddie who put them in the back of the lorry. It's hostile immigration policies that are making people have to get in the back of a lorry to be able to travel. But it's not ideal for politicians to have us think about that. So they like to talk instead about modern slavery and wanting to catch the slavers and the traffickers.
Governments use the fight against modern slavery to justify tough immigration policies. In 2015, the UK created a bill to tackle modern slavery.
The Modern Slavery Bill will be one of the first acts of its kind in the world.
But the government also introduced 2 immigration bills.
We've toughened the sanctions on illegal working to make clear that the UK is no soft touch.
These made life impossible for those who had entered the UK through regular means.
They don't have the right to work, so they're forced into the shadowy parts of our economy. And when you look at that Prime Minister's speeches and policy plans, you can see that she's using modern slavery as a kind of moral foil for those immigration plans.
In the US, the Trump administration did something similar.
But you have the human traffickers, and they use these children as passports to get into the country.
Pointing the finger at traffickers and parents for the hardship caused to migrant children, instead of his own policies that separated families.
Yes or no, are we still putting children in cages?
Does it differ from the cages you put your dogs in?
Yes.
In what sense?
It's larger.
Governments say they want to solve modern slavery.
But really, to make the change, there has to be institutional change, systematic changes that are hard, not just easy fixes. The systems and institutions that are used to manage migration around the world inherently make migrants vulnerable to trafficking, and yet governments don't want to do anything about immigration systems.
It is often governments' own policies that drive people into modern slavery.
What do I want? I want to know myself, and BetterHelp makes that possible. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform with a network of over 25,000 licensed therapists, making it easy to find a therapist that will meet you right where you are. All you have to do is fill out a quick questionnaire to tell them a little bit about yourself. What issues are you going through? And what do you want in a therapist? Every question helps the platform connect you with a licensed therapist that can meet your individual needs. And the privacy that BetterHelp offers is invaluable. Being able to go to therapy in the comfort of my own home makes it possible for me to feel safe. And during stressful times, when I feel like my next session can't come soon enough, I'm able to text my therapist just to check in. Life can be complicated, but BetterHelp makes starting therapy simple. Get started today.
Loose UN gun laws have seen arms flood into Central America, fueling bloodsheds.
My administration will never ratify the UN Arms Trade Treaty. I hope you're happy.
This has pushed thousands on precarious journeys across borders.
Llegué a Matamoros y traté de cruzar el río ahí y unos tipos ahí no me dejaron pasar. Me pusieron las armas y todo y me decían que tenía que pagar como los demás.
This has left vulnerable individuals even more at risk of exploitation. While President Biden has promised to help tackle the flow of illegal weapons, his government is still deporting hundreds of thousands of migrants back to their home countries.
Me imagino que para ti no es una opción regresar a Guatemala.
No, ya no tengo opción de regresar porque ya no puedo. Entonces por eso yo ya tengo mucho miedo.
We absolutely have to solve border policies and immigration policies if we want to have the slightest chance of reducing modern slavery.
In the UK, victims of modern slavery are also detained and deported.
The government has said, yes, you are a victim, I'm just going to deport you anyway. We deport children who've been recognised as victims and lock them up in immigration jails.
They act like you are criminals. Yeah, so it's not really a detention centre or a processing centre, it's a prison.
Immigration concerns trump this alleged morality about modern slavery, and we see that repeatedly. If you actually wanted to solve exploitation, you would not be criminalising migrants.
In February this year, Kent Police raided a number of properties in a bid to save victims of sex trafficking. But as a result, a number of women were arrested on immigration charges.
Governments say that they're tackling modern slavery, but they use that as kind of like a guise to raid and deport and terrorize, especially migrant sex workers in the UK.
when sex workers actually go and report violence, including trafficking, to the police, nothing is done about it. In some cases, sex workers are actually arrested themselves for prostitution offences or immigration offences.
Anti-trafficking rhetoric has kind of been weaponized against sex workers.
Many sex workers dislike the fact that governments are criminalising the sector as a way to stop sex trafficking.
If you criminalise a sector, no one in there has any rights. The people who become bosses are people who want to make profit from criminality. And the people they're going to exploit have no way to challenge that. They can't go to the authorities, they can't seek help.
They would like governments to listen to their concerns.
Most sex workers are mothers just trying to put food on the table, put shoes on their children's feet, escape poverty, to escape violence, to escape exploitation in other jobs.
Addressing the issues of poverty, which I guess are like longer issues that governments do not want to solve, versus like temporary measures of criminalization are more obvious to people, more flashy, more appealing to the media.
More recently, politicians have shifted the blame for modern slavery onto us, the consumers.
The most powerful voice of all belongs not to business or government, but to the consumer. And if enough of us turn our backs on companies that exploit forced labour, modern slavery will cease to be commercially viable.
But can buying fair trade products really help solve exploitation?
Telling us that we as consumers can shop our way out of modern slavery is not correct and also really problematic. We're being made responsible for something that's actually a systemic failure. We could have laws called joint liability laws that make brands legally responsible for the conditions in their supply chains. Instead, we tell people to all try to shop ethically.
Calling for more rights for those at risk might instead prove more beneficial than changing our shopping habits.
As a consumer, start demanding systematic changes. If you're seeing governments cut back on social protection, scapegoat migrants and, pit workers against each other, stand up.
Today, millions of people around the world are trapped in situations of exploitation.
It works really well for politicians to talk about exploitation as modern slavery. It makes us think that the problem is really rare and it's caused by criminals. And in reality, people become exploited or modern slaves because they're vulnerable to bad work.
Modern slavery is just used as a guise for the government to be able to, feel good about themselves.
What the government are doing and increasingly doing increases the risks of exploitation.
We're always looking towards tomorrow. Investing another $4 billion in renewable energy and low-carbon solutions through 2025. Bridging to a sustainable energy future.
Welcome, it's Machine Day and I hope you're doing a static label full just show and not that options at all is.
This is a message to all streamers. Go to artlist.io and get the best music for your stream.
Streamlabs, and that enables a text on your one customize on. Do that into the just do a read that. Just need to scroll on your Streamlabs over instead. You can follow her. Now as you get into this, remember here the font size of and read stuff. You can set the font labeling and left or right line and if you want thing. Streamlabs.com dashboard for stream labels, which is under